Welcome to Puny Pod, the podcast where the devil's in the details. That's not the only place he is. Welcome to Puny Pod, everyone. We are the Marvel fandom podcast where we rewatch the MCU in release order and we cover Marvel news over on our monthly Bugle episodes. I'm Ryan, and my co-host with the indestructible head is David. David, how are we doing this morning?
It's not that indestructible, but I'm doing well. May the 4th be with you.
May the 4th.
May the 4th. Yeah, won't be listening on the 4th, but soon thereafter.
Yeah, you guys will get to listen to this on Revenge of the 6th, I think.
I forgot they did that.
Yeah, we're recording here on May 4th, and man, I'm excited. Everything is like hitting. I've got some secret news that I can't share with the podcast just yet, but you guys will hear very, very soon. In fact, I think there's going to be a very special episode dedicated to it and everything.
I don't think getting a new soundboard is that big a deal, but whatever. We'll celebrate your new soundboard. Go for it.
What else do we got going on? Of course, at the time of recording last week, Thunderbolts came out, and I saw it opening night. David, I think you saw it last night. Is that right?
I saw it yesterday. Yes, I did.
So good. What do you think?
It's pretty good. I saw Joanna Robinson, who wrote the Reign of Marvel Studios. She ranked it as the top MCU movie since Endgame. Yeah, I don't know if we'll have to see if that holds up, but it was pretty good.
Yeah, I liked it a lot, and I'm excited. I'm excited for what it means, and I think it's definitely one. I think even if you didn't know the rest of the MCU, you could probably see this one. There was some things that tied back in, but I think go take your friends who aren't MCU converts yet and go show them it, because I think it's that good.
Yeah, it's entertaining. I think people like it. It's funny. It's good action. I won't get into it now, but really enjoyed revisiting some characters we haven't spent very much time with. So it was fun. It was a good time. New villain. It was great.
Yeah, for sure. So this month we are covering we're getting into phase 4. Yeah, phase 4. We're back on the horse. We're back to reviewing Marvel mainline MCU content, and we are on the TV shows. So those who don't remember, and I'm sure David will cover some of this in his production details, but after Spider-Man Far From Home, there was this little thing called the COVID-19 pandemic, which meant that movies weren't coming out and stuff like that. And so we did see some TV shows get released to Disney Plus, and this is the first of those that we will be covering. It is called WandaVision, and as I mentioned, David has the production details.
Well, I thought we said Wonder Woman. I'm sorry. 2017 Wonder Woman star. No, I'm kidding. No. So yeah. So to Ryan's point, one of the other things which actually kind of precipitated this was also the kind of rejiggering of the powers that be at Marvel, but we'll talk about that. So WandaVision is the title. It is the show that made its Disney debut on January 15th, 2021, airing 9 episodes. It is, as you note, the first installment of Phase 4 in the multiverse saga. And it is the first TV series both set in the MCU and developed by Marvel Studios themselves for Disney Plus. And so it's set immediately after the aftermath of Endgame. Wanda is finding herself in an alternate reality in which her lover Vision is inexplicably alive one more. And that is a summary of the show. But how do we get here? So Phase 4, first installment, 24th installment of the MCU, if you consider movies as well. And it was originally going to be the second show on Disney Plus and the fourth installment, but there were production delays caused by COVID on Falcon the Winter Soldier. It was going to originally be the second MCU series on Disney Plus. Things got pushed back. So Black Widow, Eternals, all that stuff got pushed back. WandaVision was moved forward from spring 2021 to January because its production was further along. Plus, it was noted that it was, quote, easier to stay within COVID protocols due to being filmed entirely on interior sets. I don't think that worked out in hindsight. I think probably our science was a little bit off, but they did the best they could. So the actual runtime of the show, without recaps, logos, end credits, is 4 hours and 22 minutes. And then all that other stuff adds up to another almost hour and a half. So longer than a movie, almost twice the length of a movie. The original idea for WandaVision came during production notes for Infinity War and Endgame. And this is a quote from that book by Joanna Robinson, Dave Gonzalez. Quote, while we were in Atlanta shooting these two films together, there was a cable channel in the hotel where I was staying that every morning had Leave It to Beaver and My Three Sons. And so rather than watching the news in the morning, I just had that on. I found great comfort in old sitcoms, so I started to become fascinated with the idea of being able to play with the genre in a way that could both subvert what we do at Marvel and subvert what those shows were. So
that's cool.
Yeah, so that's it. He said I had the opportunity to just not to just have the stuff right around my head, we could actually turn this into something. So the filming began in Atlanta, Georgia in November 2019 before it was halted in March 2020 due to the pandemic. It resumed in September and wrapped in November. According to Matt Shackman, the series was able to premiere so soon after filming ended that the work was pretty much done, right? So a couple things. One of the fun things around the production, it was filmed in the same town square on Walt Disney's Golden Oak Ranch in Newell, California, as the Back to the Future movies.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. And little known facts, the house that Dottie lives in is the Roger Murtaugh house from the Lethal Weapon franchise. And Wanda's house is the same house that was used in Christmas Vacation. So.
Oh, okay.
And those are both on Warner Brothers Ranch, which, as an aside, I would die just to how cool would it be to visit those. So
that'd be great.
Financials: $225 million to produce, approximately $25 million per episode. On a most expensive per episode cost basis, it is the number 5 overall and number 2 most expensive Marvel TV show. Most expensive is Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power in 2022. Rotten Tomatoes, critics 92%, audience 88%. Very well received. We'll go into how we felt about it at the time, and I think we both say that we felt about it very favorably, but not everyone loved it. 1-star review from Amazon. Salvatore Avansaro. I went and put the disc into a computer tower I had hooked up to my TV, and the disc drive wouldn't even recognize the disc. The computer acted as if nothing was there. I'm sending the 4K copy back and getting the Blu-ray. End quote. Creator, head writer. That was it. That's the only one I could find. There were no real negative reviews because, if you think about it, you're not streaming it on Disney Plus where people will comment on the comment. It's just mostly the packaging was broken or the disc didn't work. So
it was all from the physical release they did a couple years ago.
Totally. So creative head writer Jack Schaefer, Agatha Long, story writer for Black Widow. Marvel asked Schaefer to pitch a show about Wanda's grief about losing vision, told as a tour through the tropes and visual language of eight decades of family sitcom history with an undercurrent of modern dread. And in the writers' room, they had these conversations about grief and loss, which leads to its famous line, which we'll get to in a bit. So the director, Matt Shackman, did a lot for It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, Fargo, Game of Thrones, and upcoming Fantastic Four. The cast, few returning cast people, mostly new folks. You have Elizabeth Olsen back, Paul Bettany's back, Catherine Hahn as Agnes O'Connor. She was the voice of Doc Ock in Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. Tiona Paris as Monica Rambeau. I have her down as being recast because she appeared as a young
Child.
child in the last movie. But the town residents, I won't name them all, but Deborah Jo Rupp as Sharon Davis, aka Mrs. Hart. She's, kind of a legend.
Foreman,
yeah. Fred Melamed played Arthur Hart. We have David Legal as Harold Parker, aka Phil Jones. Amos Glick as the Dennis the Mailman, aka the Delivery Guy, aka Pizza Delivery Man, aka Dennis. We have Joshua Stamberg as Director Tyler Hayward. We have Randall Park reappearing as Agent Jimmy Woo, last seen in Ant-Man the Wasp, working on his card tricks. We see Kat Denning again as Darcy Lewis. We last saw it in, I believe, Thor: Dark World.
Sounds right.
And we have Jeff Klein as Tommy Maximoff, Julian Hilliard as Billy Maximoff. And we have Evan Peters returning-ish as Robert Boner / Pietro Maximoff.
Boner.
And we have, finally, Peanut Butter the Rabbit as Senior Scratchy, making their debut.
That's fantastic.
Anyway, so they used the things that were kind of cool about the production, and we'll kind of get into the episode. The used era appropriate sets and costumes and effects to create the different sitcom styles. Early in pre-productions, the producers hired Dick Van Dyke to advise them on how Golden Age sitcoms were staged and blocked and filmed, and they just rewatched a bunch of prior episodes. And this is actually because one of the creatives had come from theater. This is one of the few shows where all the people practice their lines together as a group, as an ensemble, as opposed to you have your lines, I have my lines, we show up and we just say our lines. And I know you will get into the comic stuff, but the last thing I was going to say, all the theme songs, despite them all being like wildly different, were crafted by the same husband-wife songwriter team, Robert and Kristen Anderson Lopez, who did Frozen and Coco.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Those are the production deets.
Right on. Yeah. And definitely an interesting production, obviously, with COVID and that sort of stuff. And I think, definitely some cool stuff there. To get into the comic book side real quick. So really, I'm just going to kind of talk about Wanda and then Vision. So Wanda introduced X-Men number 4, January of 1964, written by Stan Lee, drawn by Jack Kirby. I'm going to start with her heritage, right? Because the common story you hear, if you talk to somebody who's not really a comic book fan, but they're aware of comic books, is that Wanda and her twin brother Pietro are the mutant children of Magneto. However, as is typical with a lot of things, when you just try and get a surface level understanding, this is just plumb wrong. Wanda and Pietro are the children of a nomadic Romani witch named Natalia Maximoff. Through a series of events, the High Evolutionary actually kidnaps the twins with the intention to experiment on and enhance them. Sounds familiar. And he put them in the care of his humanoid cow midwife named Bova these nuts.
I thought you were going to say Boba Fett, and
That's fair. That would have been more timely. But they were at Wundagore Mountain where they were being cared for. The mystic, basically, Bova convinced the twins that Magda, who was also a resident of Wundagore, was actually the twins' mother. Well, at Wundagore, Wanda became imbued with the mystic energies that were present there thanks to the demon lord of chaos, Chthon. I won't get into too many of the details because they get really twisty-turny, but through some various events, the twins ended up back with their Romani family. Wanda's magic manifested for the first time in a story actually involving Lilia Calderu, who people who are caught up in the MCU, that name might sound familiar. And Pietro developed his super speed. Eventually, the twins would end up wandering Central Europe and living off the land. After an unfortunate accident where Wanda burned down a village in Transia, Magneto rescued the twins from an angry mob and demanded their loyalty to his Brotherhood of Evil Mutants. This is where their first appearance actually happened. So everything before, everything that I talked about there, all that backstory, was all kind of like retconned. And this is common in the comic books, where you kind of get a character introduced at like the midpoint of their life, and then at some point later they go back and tell the backstory.
Yeah, having read early, X-Men stuff, the part about they're the children of Magneto and Magda, and the part you read about the cow and all that stuff was like afterwards.
Yeah, exactly. So Wanda's first appearance was basically a plot to take control of the nation of Santo Marco by Magneto. Wanda faced off with the X-Men during this fight. Her fighting style was largely established during this fight, where she kind of pushed back against Magneto's really ruthless approach. But any time that she would be emotionally compromised, so in this fight, Angel actually incapacitated her brother, so she was emotionally compromised. Her powers totally let loose, and she just went crazy. After repeatedly being used as pawns in Magneto's plans, the twins escaped the Brotherhood and eschewed the X-Men's offers to join them, and instead went off to live a peaceful life. Obviously, because this is comic books, that peaceful life couldn't last. The twins saw that the Avengers were seeking new applicants, and so they applied and joined the Avengers. She met and married Vision during this time, though because it was a mutant marrying a synthezoid, there was a terrorist bombing at the first wedding that caused Wanda to develop her true hate of humanity. She would eventually meet Agatha Harkness at Pietro's wedding and train under her tutelage. After moving to the quiet town of Leona, New Jersey, Scarlet Witch and Vision would stumble into the village of New Salem, created by the Salem Seven, and Scarlet Witch uses her magic to conceive a baby. During the pregnancy, Scarlet Witch doesn't. During the pregnancy, Scarlet Witch didn't slow down. She fought several magic users and demons while being pregnant. With the help of Doctor Strange, she gave birth to twin baby boys, Thomas, named after Phineas Thomas Horton, creator of Vision's original body, more on that in a second, and William, named after the Williams family, who is Wonder Man's family, and Wonder Man's brain patterns were used in the creation of Vision. For time's sake, I'm going to glaze over about 20 years of comic book history that are largely summed up by saying Scarlet Witch is a morally complex magic user who came and went from the Avengers and dealt with many demonic and other possessions. During those 20 years, Scarlet Witch's reality bending abilities really came to fruition, and she found out she was a Nexus being who is capable of impacting probabilities, the future, and anchors reality and acts as a node of mystic energy. So Nexus beings are pretty big deals, and further on in the MCU, we'll talk more about Nexus beings, but pretty big deal. Fast forward to the House of M. This is probably the most well-known Scarlet Witch story for modern comic book readers. To give a very, very, very high level explainer, Scarlet Witch was becoming increasingly unstable because her children were taken away from her and were actually parts of the demon Mephisto, and warped reality around the Avengers, causing their disbandment, and was put into. So Scarlet Witch was put into a catatonic state. While her ultimate fate was being discussed, she actually accessed Professor X's brain and tried to use it to build a reality where everyone's deepest wishes came true. Mutants were the racial majority. Magneto ruled the world. Wanda was a human who was a recluse with her children. though this reality was far from perfect. So Wolverine, thanks to some of his healing abilities, was actually able to kind of see through this illusion, um, and kind of, because one of the things one of his deepest wishes was regaining his memories. So he regained his memories, right, and that included being put into the illusion. Hawkeye, who was dead at the beginning of this story in the comics, actually was brought back from the dead, which also created some suspicions for some folks. Ultimately, an army of superheroes worked to break the illusion. In the end, Wanda uttered probably one of her most famous comic book lines, "No more mutants." This
I thought you were going to say it's clobbering time.
This depowered the majority of the mutant population, killing many who were dependent on their powers to live, incapacitating many more, and erasing all of Wanda's memories in an event that would be known as M-Day. Of course, that was 20 years ago, so nothing is permanent in the comics. And so over the last 20 years, she has had her memories restored. Her powers have been unlocked again. The effects of M-Day were reversed during the events of Avengers versus X-Men. And Wanda has been doing stories both solo and with the Avengers and with the X-Men. She's largely involved anytime that anything gets like multiversal or mystic. That's kind of where she pops in. And she still has some struggles with the mutant community because of the events of M-Day. Everybody remembers she said no more mutants, and there were no more mutants. And so the mutants don't particularly love Wanda. So that is Wanda. Moving over to Vision. Introduced Avengers number 57, August of 1968, Roy Thomas and John Buscema. In the interest of time, I'm going to brush over 30 years of early comic book history, because the body that Vision inhibits in the comic books actually starts as the Human Torch, who was an android named Jim Hammond, and was introduced actually in Marvel Comics #1, August of 1939. So I'm going to skip the time where that body wasn't exactly Vision and kind of just get to the meat of the Vision story. So here we are in 1968. Ultron is seeking revenge on all of humanity, and he sees the inert body of Jim Hammond and forced Phineas T. Horton to reshape his mind and body to become the Vision. After the last essence of Jim Hammond rebelled against Ultron, Ultron replaced Hammond's brains with the brain patterns of Simon Williams, aka Wonder Man, who we actually are getting a Disney Plus series about later this year in the MCU. After attempting to attack the Avengers in a very twisty-turny master plan, sort of planned by Ultron, Vision rebelled against Ultron, leading to Ultron's ultimate demise, and Vision joined the Avengers. The next 10-ish years of stories can largely be defined by the repetition of about 3 plot points. Vision and Scarlet Witch have romance drama, which puts them at odds with the public or each other. There's family drama with either the Grim Reaper, who is Wonder Man's super racist, super crappy brother, which effectively is Vision's brother because he has Wonder Man's brain patterns.
I mean, we all have complex families.
Or Quicksilver, right? So one of the brothers is causing problems, and usually involves some sort of hidden subplot where that makes Vision do bad things, right? There's some leftover Ultron code or something that takes Vision's brain over. There is a short love triangle with Mantis, a sudden weakness to Vision being anywhere near water, not in it, just near it, and a story where Vision had to face Wonder Man and Jim Hammond, essentially the ghost of his past. All of this culminated in the story where Vision and Scarlet Witch get married in 1975. After a short hiatus in New Jersey, Vision's control crystal, which, mind you, was not a Infinity Stone like it is in the MCU, just that was his control crystal, was damaged and caused him to take a run at world domination, starting with becoming the Avengers chairman and eventually connecting himself to the world's computer systems and taking it all over. Although ultimately he sacrificed himself, this plot did not go unnoticed and caused the government to distrust the Avengers. This is sounding really familiar. Characters changed, but it sounds like pre-Civil War MCU. After renouncing their Avengers memberships, the Scarlet Witch and Vision established themselves as private citizens in Leona, New Jersey. Vision was captured by the government and dismantled, though the Avengers recovered his remains. Simon Williams, who was back alive now, refused to give his brain patterns to this project. So Wonder Man said, no, you can't have my brain anymore. Between the lack of these brain patterns and the damage to Vision's skin, he was resurrected as the white, emotionless synthezoid that we kind of got to see at the end of this series. Through some events, aka the great 90s Marvel tradition of undoing all their stories, Vision was forced back into a new body that more closely resembled his old body, and Anti-Vision, an evil Vision from another universe, took over the white body. Vision regained access to Simon Williams' brain patterns, saved Ultron, who now had feelings, a trench coat, and a cool hat from Anti-Vision, and got involved with the love triangle. So this love triangle is Carol Danvers, Mantis, and Vision. Picture that one, folks.
It's wild.
Eventually, he was destroyed, then rebuilt by Tony Stark because they needed to get that part closer to the movies. In a let me tell you this bonkers storyline from 2015, Vision decided that in order to better understand humanity, he needed to build his own family and live, quote, the American dream. He built his wife, named Virginia, and used her brainwaves to create twins, Vin and Viv. Virginia killed the Grim Reaper and was blackmailed by a neighbor. While confronting the blackmailer, the neighbor's child, who was Viv's lab partner in school, was killed, and Virginia put the neighbor in a coma. I won't get too far into the rest of the story, but it's nuts, and it ends with pretty much just Viv and Vision standing. Vision.
I thought they only did drugs in the 60s.
Yeah, I was like reading through the comic book summaries, and oh my god. So I need to go back and read this part because it's like Vision trying to live a normal life, but there's murder and craziness.
I can empathize a little bit with when they give you at the writer's room a stack of comics, and you get this one. You're like, how do I weave this into the story? You're like, that one might get discarded.
Yeah, that one maybe ends up on.
It might be hard to put that on the big screen.
Yeah. Vision's most recent significant story was in 2019. He was nearly dead and accepted his fate, having realized that the beauty of life is that it's finite. But he was convinced by Conan, yes, that Conan, to keep living and battle the Greek goddess Nyx. Nyx had gone into the House of Ideas, which is a plane of existence at the core of reality, where she had the intention of destroying all of reality. Vision went in, beat her, and emerged fully repaired. So he is alive and well in the comics these days. I will mention Sword real quick. So Sword in the comics introduced Astonishing X-Men Volume 3, Number 3, July 2004, written by our favorite Joss Whedon, and drawn by John Cassidy. So they're kind of just a governmental organization. They're not all that interesting in the comics. So I won't go into a full story about them, but I did want to just give their credits there. So, oh boy. Well, before we get into the movie, David, let's take a quick commercial break. We will catch up with the listeners after we get back. What's up, everyone? It's Ryan from Puny Pod. I am here interrupting the Ears Up Network show that you are already listening to take a look at what's happening around the rest of the network. First up, we'll talk about my show, Puny Pod. We just did a monthly bugle where we previewed the Thunderbolts, we previewed Free Comic Book Day, and we reviewed Daredevil Born Again. Coming up this month, we've got our WandaVision review, as well as our review of Thunderbolts in our monthly bugle episode. Moving over to the namesake for the network, Ears Up, they have a couple of really great episodes giving some history of some characters within the Disney story. Bill Evans, who was responsible for the early landscaping of Disneyland, and Rennie Bardot, the man who photographed Walt Disney. Moving over to Bantha Milk, they have their first Andor review up now, and they will be continuing to review Andor as it comes out. They also have a special Around the Dejeric table coming out all about Andor. It's Andor season over there. Scraping the Vault is resting up before they head into the Tinkerverse. And last but certainly not least, we have Supreme Resort. They just released Wheel of Clickbaity Garbage plus Epic Universe Reaction Vlog Reactions. Coming up soon, they have Indiana Jones Stunt Spectacular versus everyone's favorite Disneyland stunt show, Waterworld, at Universal Studios Hollywood. And soon, the Harrison comparison. I wonder what that'll be about. Anyway, back to the show you are listening to. Welcome back, listeners. We are back, and we are going to get into our actual breakdown review of this series. So let's start with setting the stage a little bit. David, what was your first viewing of this like? What do you remember about the time? Like, obviously we were in COVID, but yeah, what do you remember?
No, I think that was why, some of these movies, I might be honest, when you're like, hey, what was it like when you walked in to watch The Incredible Hulk for the first time? And I kind of struggle to remember this distinctly. Remember lockdown, there's no sports, can't go outside because the air will kill you. And this new show is coming on Disney Plus, and there was a lot of curiosity about what it was going to be. And you start reading what the stories were going to be like, and I was very excited because there was just nothing going on. You're doing Zoom game nights. You're just trying to do anything to like connect. And what I really, really enjoyed, especially as we got into it, was just like the mysteries of everything and all the theories and trying to crack that. It wasn't, it's not quite like original True Detective, but it was definitely like, I don't know, man. Like it was a very, obviously very difficult time. And so this was like this point of brightness every week. Yeah. And you would like, I don't know, connect with, people I'd never been met before online talking about the show. Right.
Yeah, absolutely. No, I completely agree. I think like you said, I think one of the big things to note is we were living in a weird time, right? The movie theaters were closed. There wasn't movies coming out. There was like all of that going on. And then on top of that, you have this kind of weird show, right? Like ultimately WandaVision is kind of weird with the especially the early few episodes where it's like, oh, is this just going to be them like doing a review of all the like sitcom tropes over the years? How's that going to work? What's this going to be about? And I was not familiar enough with Wanda's story to necessarily know. I knew she had like the reality bending, and obviously that's introduced pretty early on in the show. But it was one of those things where it's like, well, what are we going to do here?
One of the people is dead.
Yeah, right. Vision is dead. How is this all in Wanda's head? Is this actually a reality she's bent into existence? And so I agree. I think watching it, talking with people about the Mephisto theories and all that stuff. Watching the like whatchamacallits, the like screen crushes and the
Mm-hmm.
um what's
New
the
rock
other one?
stars.
New rock stars and all those, like every week to try and get to the bottom of what they saw. Um it was really, really cool. And I will also say this is probably a good time for me to mention that I am a very staunch believer in, like, the release pattern is part of the artistry of a show. And so we had, to this point, we had seen a lot of binge releases, right? Stranger Things and things like that, that just they dropped whole seasons all at once. And with this, they did it week by week. They dropped the first 2 episodes, if I remember correctly. They dropped the first 2 episodes together week one, and then it was weekly after that, if memory serves. And I remember just watching week by week to see like what's gonna happen next, and really getting that feeling of old school TV kind of cliffhanger situations, and it was great. I loved it.
Yeah, yeah. First two released at the same time. You binge them to kind of like build your enthusiasm, right? And then you do
Right.
weekly releases. Yeah, by the end, it was such a big deal. And remember, like Disney Plus was like the new streaming platform. Everyone's trying to catch up to Netflix. Disney's got all this content. A lot of it's sitting on Netflix itself. And they're like, well, let's bring it all in house and let's build up this big subscription based model. This was going to be the first show. And by episode 7, there were so many people watching it. The Disney Plus crashed, which is wild. And then it happened at episode 7,
Yeah.
episode 8, and the finale. And so they knew they had something here. I can't say all the Disney Plus shows have been as great, but I remember on initial watch, like I loved it so much. I love that I could rewatch it. I haven't rewatched it in a while though. So coming back, what were you thinking on rewatch?
Yeah, so this is probably an interesting time for me to admit that I have not rewatched any of these Disney Plus series so far.
I thought you
Other
were going to
than
say I've never watched it before. I was like, well, this will be a fun ride on this episode.
right? No, other than to watch this one for this episode, and then soon I'll be watching Falcon and Winter Soldier for that episode. But um
So
yeah,
you were one and done.
I was one and done. Mostly because there's other stuff that I'm trying to watch and whatever. Um and so coming back to this was a really interesting experience for me, because I remembered it, but I haven't had that chance to rewatch this knowing what the ending's going to be, right? I haven't gone back to rewatch this after knowing that, like, at the end, which, spoiler alert, but whatever, we're going to go over it, the hex collapses and everybody goes away, and like um that's really interesting. And then also, I won't say anything about the plot lines, but we've also had a spin-off of this show come out now, right? And so rewatching it in a modern MCU sensibility, where we have additional texture that comes in from a spin-off, as well as having finished it, was a really interesting experience, and I was really excited to get into it because I just hadn't done it before. It's not like Iron Man 1 that I can throw on when I'm hungover and whatever. It is a brand new experience, which I really enjoyed.
Yeah, so the first installment of Phase 4. So they've pretty much, with Endgame, they've pretty much like, okay, we've done we laid the groundwork, we laid it all out there. Now we have to kind of build up, introducing Photon, laying out Wanda and the multiverse area, bringing in White Vision, like Agatha, and all these. Like they did a lot on rewatch. I was surprised at how much the world building that they started to lay groundwork for. Right?
Yeah, absolutely. And that, you saying multiverse, was also something like we knew that they were hinting towards multiverse, and so I was really curious if this show was going to be super, super, super deeply multiversal. Now, it didn't
Same.
really end up being that way, but I was curious if like each episode was going to be in a different universe, like one that's stuck in the 50s, one that's stuck in the 60s, whatever. But it wasn't. So David, you want to take it away and get us into the first episode here?
Sure. Season 1, episode 1. Well, I will no longer say season 1 because we're only going to get one season of this. But episode 1 was called Filmed Before a Live Studio Audience. And it was, in fact, filmed before a live studio audience. No laugh track. They thought about doing all of them in front of a live studio audience. And then they kind of backed away from that. As we talked about, each of the episodes, as you just mentioned, were kind of themed. 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, 2000s. So this is the 50s. This is the think Dick Van Dyke kind of, husband wife comedy. So
husband trips over the
completely
the chair and everything.
Man, I used to love Dick Van Dyke. It was great. We get the classic Marvel intro, which then shifts to black and white, and we are now in the 50s. Your classic black and white 50s sitcom. Featuring newlywed couple Wanda Maximoff and Vision, and they arrive into the suburban town of Westview, New Jersey. I think it's 6 or 7 of the episodes they have an intro song. This one was 50s themed and incorporates like wedding chimes and a classic kind of big band orchestra to give this kind of overall wholesomeness kind of feeling to the start of the show. They are settling into their new home and trying to blend in and have a normal life. Vision tries to hide his robotic appearance under human disguise, which is basically just him without makeup on, which I'm sure Paul Bettany was ecstatic for all those scenes. And, she's trying to like subvert the display of her abilities as well. So the two of them are in the kitchen. They puzzle over the significance of a mysterious heart on a kitchen calendar, and they can't remember what it is. And they're trying to are they celebrating something? It's an anniversary. As Vision starts to leave the work, Wanda points out he's forgotten to transform himself into his human appearance, which he does before heading out. The date on the calendar is August 23. If read, date month, as you do in certain countries, 23/8. That could be a reference to Avengers 23/8, a comic that features Vision returning to life, Monarch Rambeau, and a holographic simulation, which kind of seemed to play into WandaVision a bit.
Yeah, for sure.
So not long after, Wanda meets next door neighbor Agnes, and they have, they're the kind of like your stereotypical next door neighbor, right? Like kind of nosy, the very funny, it's great. And, they have this conversation about being married. She tells them she's caught off guard because they can't remember how long they've been together, anniversary. And she then proclaims, Wanda, that she and Vision are celebrating their anniversary, to which Agnes offers to help plan the special night. So good. Vision is working at Computational Services, Inc., which could have been a real computer place in the 80s. And his coworker Norm marvels at how fast he works. Vision asks Norm what they produce, and Norm tells him computational forms, and then jokes that Vision is like a walking computer, which Vision denies. Totally. So they can't remember what it is, and it finally remembers that they're hosting a dinner for Mr. Hart, who's his boss. And the last person who hosted a disappointing dinner was Phil Jones, who was leaving because he got fired for not hosting a dinner to his liking. So
not having more than a string quartet. The jokes.
So cut to what, cutting through the episode, Agnes and Wanda, they're talking about discussing plans and seduction techniques and all this stuff. Just very kind of this Puritan kind of approach to wink nod to, the husband wife stuff that did separate beds, and just was just a different time. Getting your beak wet in the 50s. Vision calls Wanda and they plan their big night. But it's the thing where, you have two different opinions as to what's going on. He's thinking they're getting ready for the dinner. Wanda's thinking about their anniversary dinner. And it's just, anyway,
I need
hijinks
to
ensue.
please the wife. I need to please the yeah.
Yeah, totally. We get the first commercial break. We see these in, again, most of the episodes, but this is the part about, I really love the structure of the show. It does feel like episodes of a TV show, of a comedy.
Oh yeah.
Here's your commercial break, if you will. And each one of them was increasingly like darker and harder to understand. This is part of like the nerd research of New Rockstars.
Oh, yeah.
What does all this
Oh,
stuff
yeah.
mean? So the first one is a commercial for a toaster. The Toastmaster, this Toastmate 2000, Stark Industries product. And, it starts innocently enough, but then it's just the machine starts to beep and flash and red light. It seems kind of weird. And it's one of the, the only bits of colors is flashing red light. It says, the punchline, forget the past. This is the future.
Yeah, and it kind of gets ominous. It like focuses on the flashing red light, and it gets kind of ominous for a second, and then forget the past. This is the future.
This is the future. So, and that's it. That's the only commercial you get. And you're just left wondering, what the hell did I just want? So later that night, Vision arrives with the hearts. Wanda sneaks out behind Mr. Hart, mistaking for Vision. Oops. And gives him the whole guess who. And Vision scrambles to explain that Wanda is from Sokovia and this is her customary greeting. The laugh track, not even a laugh track, but people laughing in the background. Although I think they might have piped in laugh track, I think, because it really had very reminiscent of that. So they, Vision explains the heart on the calendar represents the heart's visit.
I get it now.
Or you could just write hearts are coming to dinner. That's fine. Wanda snaps herself into a new dress, begins to work on cooking a home-cooked meal. Vision, in this weird way, starts to entertain the hearts by singing Yakety Yak.
Don't talk back.
I don't know why. He tries to get more information about what the company does. There's just not a lot of background. We'll obviously know the reasons why, because that storyline wasn't something that was thought of. Yeah, exactly. And Wanda's cooking. They drop something. Agnes offers to help. Wanda hurries Agnes out of the house. Mrs. Hart tries to make another attempt to help in the kitchen. Distracts her by, catches people off guard. Wanda is struggling to make dinner. She burns the chicken to a crisp and then turns the chicken into a basket of eggs while Vision continues to distract the Hearts with a sing-along, which is just, at this point in time, he knows he's going to get fired. Ultimately, as the nights wear on, the Hearts begin to grow impatient, and just as Mr. Hart begins to scold Vision, Wanda quickly lays out their dinner, and they all sit down to eat some breakfast for dinner. And then the questions begin. Where do they come from? And then Mr. Hart starts to demand answers. It gets a little darker, right? And then Mr. Hart starts choking. And this is the first time in the episode where I'm like, oh, there's something weird going on here. Like, we kind of knew it, but so Mrs. Hart, they cut back to her and she's looking panicked and she keeps saying, stop it. And then to her husband, and then says, stop it to Wanda. And then Wanda looks kind of panicked before Vision saves Hart. He reaches in and takes it out of his throat and stuff. And then they're all pleased and they walk away and Vision's getting a promotion. Now, that was basically the end. But there was a moment of the look on her face when she's saying, stop it, stop it.
Yeah, definitely. It's one of those things that you catch more on rewatch, right? Because when you're watching it first time around, it's like, what's happening here? But then on rewatch, when you know that it's all an illusion and everything, you're like, oh, this is Mrs. Hart trying to break out of the simulation a little bit.
Yep. And so one of the to your House of M, there was one of the first things that people nerded out on was the bottle of wine, the Maison de Mépris, which translates to House of Contempt. But if you look at the bottle, it was turning away. It's the House of M, homage to the comics. And after the guests leave, Wanda notes that they are an unusual couple. She points out they have no anniversary or song or wedding rings. And they decide that today will be their anniversary and their song will be Yakety Yak. of course. And they conjure rings, and boom, they're married. They share a kiss, and the episode comes to an end, and we see the credits roll. And as they roll, we see that WandaVision is a fictional TV sitcom that's being monitored. And if you look at the screen, you could see a notebook, and you see an obvious sword insignia right there. So here comes sword.
Yep. Here comes sword. So episode 2, called Don't Touch That Dial. We are now in the 1960s, inspired by Bewitched. Wanda and Vision are sleeping in their separate beds when they hear strange noises outside. Loud sound wakes up Wanda. Eventually, Vision goes and checks on the window to see what causes it. Vision assures Wanda that there's nothing to worry about. The sound scares him back into his bed. Vision points out that his coworkers were talking about some suspicious ne'er-do-wells around town, and Wanda kind of insinuates, like, they're probably talking about us. We are the ne'er-do-wells. As Vision cowers in his bed, Wanda eventually discovers the cause of the sound was a tree branch on the side of the house, and Wanda redecorates the room and pushes the two beds together and lowers the lights and kissy. This is actually the beds kind of joining together is actually a reference to a show that's referenced a few times in this episode, The Mary Tyler Moore Show, which was actually the first show in television to depict a married couple sleeping in the same bed. Before that, it was always separate beds. And then we get the Easter egg, just heavy.
Man.
This intro, so they do like an animated intro, very, 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 very much like Bewitched, right? Bewitched classic animated intro, very similar cartoon style. And we get the WandaVision, WandaVision.
Don't get it stuck in my head again, man. Like, it's just getting out.
But there were a ton of Easter eggs. And by a ton, I mean at least 4. So we see as they kind of pan through the house in between two of the stories, you see the Grim Reaper's helmet from the comics, which would be Wonder Man's brother, who was also a very common part of Wanda's stories. You also see there were also like bones in the attic.
It's creepy. When you watch it again, you're just
I
like,
think there were like a dog bowl next to it. I think kind of hinting towards where we're gonna get with Sparky eventually. We see Bova milk.
At the grocery store, right?
Yep, Bova Fett.
Stupid.
We also saw Auntie A's kitty litter, likely Auntie Agnes, aka Auntie Agatha Harkness. We also saw on that same screen Wonder Oats, which I have to imagine is a reference to Wonder Man, who was used in Vision.
There's also, if you look in the right hand side, there's a box of Yum Mephisto. Hello. All right, I went too far there. Sorry.
Yum Brands. There's going to be a Taco Bell tie-in.
Yo quiero Mephisto. Sorry.
So yeah, great earworm. Honestly, like I could go back and rewatch that intro. It's a good time, and I enjoyed going back and rewatching it to try and find all the Easter eggs and stuff. It's pretty fun. Next morning, Vision wakes up. He's practicing his magic routine as Illusion, the master of Enigma. For the neighborhood talent show fundraiser, Wanda serves as his assistant Glamour, who he makes disappear. As Vision worries about the routine, Wanda explains that she just wants them to fit in with their neighbors at Westview. So quick note here, Illusion and Glamour are actually comic book characters who Vision and Wanda were friends with. So they're a couple illusion and glamour. So kind of fun that they pulled that in as a little Easter egg.
There was also supposed to be when she walks, like it's the same room or same house in every episode. They just look different, right? This style, but it's the same stairwell coming from the right.
Mm-hmm.
Very Brady Bunch, except flip it around. You're supposed to be able to see a mural in the back that looks like the Sokovia. I studied it so hard I couldn't see it. But the box that the Vision uses for the disappearing box has what looks to be the Mind Stone on the front.
Yeah, it definitely looks very much like Vision's Mind Stone circuitry.
Yep.
I will also note there, and I could not figure out what this was an Easter egg to, other than maybe Thor. There's like a statue on the like side table that it has to have been an Easter egg, and I could not find it through research. I couldn't place it other than maybe being classic Thor. It kind of looks like a body with a head with like kind of wings on the head. So
Okay, I'd have to look.
but Thor wouldn't be all that special to this, right?
I could see Ultron maybe, but
Yeah.
not if it had wings in it. Well, take a look. All right, well, I've got my to do for the rest of
Super secret spoiler show. Here we go.
the day.
So Wanda explains that she's heading to a planning committee meeting. Well, Vision is off to a meeting of the Town Watch. However, Wanda doesn't make it far because she hears the crash in her front yard and goes to investigate. She finds a toy helicopter that happens to be in color. And it's Iron Man's colors. No, just kidding. That doesn't actually play in. But it does have the sword logo on it. Just as she kind of is starting to get confused, Agnes arrives and goes, "Look, it's the star of the show." And we have Senior Scratchy the rabbit. Sly little reference to Nicholas Scratch.
Yeah,
who
totally.
comic book fans will know is very tied in with Agatha.
Yeah, I on rewatch, I really did enjoy all the little crumbs and Easter eggs, and even some of the, well, you think it's going to be this, but it's not that. But there was a ton in this episode.
Oh yeah, this one was just dripping with it. Agnes and Wanda head off to the committee meeting. Agnes warns Wanda of Dottie, the evil Dottie. Basically, she points out that Dottie could make getting in good with Dottie could make Wanda's life way easier around here. At the meeting, Wanda sees how demanding Dottie can be, as Bev, hi Bev, give old school ears up fans will get that one. Gives a presentation about the decorations. Dottie quizzes her where the chairs came from. Bev doesn't know. Dottie says, "The devil's in the details, Bev." Agnes says, "That's not the only place he is. He's also making your children, Wanda." Oh, that was one of the key Mephisto. It's Mephisto things that Reddit went crazy on.
Everyone, it's Mephisto. Mephisto's coming in. Mephisto.
It was Mephisto all along.
It was Mephisto. Guess what's not going to be Mephisto? But yeah, I'm with you. Same thing. What's the name for new rock stars? It just seemed like almost Eric.
Eric
just like putting his reputation on the line, like he's gonna show up, and like you're running out of episodes. Like I think he's gonna show up anyway.
We also at this meeting meet Geraldine, who kind of seems a little off. Doesn't know why she's there. And at this point, we don't know who she is. Right? At this point in the show, it's Tiona Parrish who will be exposed later on to be Photon, but we didn't know who she was, right? She wasn't. This was a new cast, and all we knew is she was a little bit out of place at this point. Meanwhile, Vision is at the neighborhood watch meeting at the library. They explain to him it's a members only event, which doesn't include him. He hangs around basically until they include him. When offered a Danish, he lets slip that he doesn't eat, which kind of oops. He's allowed to join the group, and he does accept a stick of big red gum for mastication purposes. Now, Big Red is actually it was the code name for this project while they were filming it. It's kind of I forget what that's called now, but it's kind of secretive name when
Oh, I
they
didn't know
were
that.
recording this. Yeah,
I
yeah.
also no, I was going to say I also feel like Big Red was also a nickname of Vision's in the
Oh
comics. I
yeah.
think.
And I think in the movies, I think maybe Tony called him Big Red at some point or another. I want to say, but yeah. Now he chews and he gets patted on the back, and he swallows the gum, and it literally gums up the works. I need a laugh track here. Uh, um, Wanda cleans up after the meeting over at the pool, and she tries to get on Dottie's good side. Basically, Dottie's like, "Hey, I've heard some things," and Wanda's really trying hard to convince her. And eventually, the radio starts playing, and we hear, "Help me, Rhonda." Rhonda, that, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
obviously intentionally confusing. Um, by the Beach Boys starts to play, becomes clearer, and we hear, "Wanda, Wanda, can you hear me? Over, Wanda. Who's doing this to you, Wanda?"
This was such a creepy scene.
Dude, it was so creepy. And because then it gets even weirder, where like the glass in Dottie's hand shatters, it cuts her. We see the red blood. Dottie makes a joke about cleaning up blood stains, and it's so just dark and like, oh man, what is happening here?
Yeah.
And I think on first watch through, we don't know that this is Wanda doing all this, right? We think maybe Wanda is trapped by somebody, right? Maybe Mephisto has her trapped. That was one of the big theories, right? Maybe
Mm-hmm.
Mephisto has her trapped or something like that. Um, so with that in mind, where you don't know that Wanda's kind of the bad guy in this story, you're kind of going, "Oh God, what is happening here?"
Right. Right. Yeah. You don't realize that she's kind of the antagonist number two, right? Or
Yeah.
co-antagonist. The part where Dottie's like, Wanda's trying to get in her good graces, and now you understand why she is trying to like create the show and create the illusion. And I don't know what you've been told. I'm not here to, I'm not here to harm you. And Dottie's like, I don't believe you. And that's Dottie's moment of like scratching to the surface, right?
Yeah. Yep. And then we get a commercial break. This time it's for Strucker Watch, which is a Hydra product. Um, Obviously referencing Baron von Strucker, who who experimented on the twins, Pietro and Wanda during their time.
One of the interesting things, like Marvel actually, like the Strucker watch was something you could actually buy at one point in time. Marvel's like, oh, we
Oh,
can make some money off this. Hello, right?
that's hilarious. That's hilarious. Yeah. Um, Cut to the talent show. Wanda panics backstage. She waits for Vision to show up, but his works are all gummed up. Um, and he's very much acting drunk. If you've ever seen A Knight's Tale and you see like when Paul Bettany in that show or in that movie is being drunk, it's the same Paul Bettany, and it's great. It's one of my favorite
That's great.
versions of him. Um, Wanda introduces the final fundraiser act. Quote, or not Wanda, sorry. Dottie
Dottie.
introduces the final act, and everybody chants for the children.
Yeah, we don't see any children. Super
You're right.
creepy.
Wanda takes the stage and introduces the Vision, who stumbles out and appears to be 5 vodka tonics into the day. He bubbles
I,
about his routine.
dude,
Just
if you had made me do this, man, I'd be the same way. I'd be like,
all right. I'm getting hammered. And it's pretty funny. Like essentially, Vision's doing all this stuff that he can only do because of his powers, right? He's flying, he's making things happen and all this. And Wanda is actively using her magic to implement like basically bad sleight of hand, right? It's
Mhm.
the rope is visible or the smoke and mirrors fails or whatever, each trick she intentionally makes it so it's like bad magic instead
Right.
of actual powers. During their big finale, the Cabinet of Mysteries, Vision is fully at just don't give any cares anymore, and he messes up the magic act. The crowd starts chanting, "What's in the box?"
And it's
So,
Gwyneth Paltrow's head.
all right, that would have been a real turn.
That would have been great. Oh my
Pepper,
god.
no!
There's Brad Pitt. What's in the box? Sorry.
Oh, so they open the box doors, and there's Geraldine, who was supposed to be used, but the box was supposed to be used to make Wanda disappear. Geraldine is confused, but the audience is delighted. They go backstage. Wanda discovers the gum in Vision's system, corrects the problem. The new, now sober Vision tosses the gum away, and the couple sneak away. Dottie spots them, however, and demands Wanda and Vision stop. Will they expect to be scolded? Dottie instead presents them with the comedy performance of the year. Wanda brings Geraldine on stage to take a bow with them. Geraldine asks how they did the trick, but of course, they refuse to answer because a magician never reveals their secrets. For the children.
The audience applauds. Yeah. Still creepy as the first time.
Yeah. And then they head back home. They talk about their day of fitting in, and jointly they say, it was for the children.
I wonder if we're going to see children later on in the
Maybe.
show. Huh. Weird.
Wanda states that the children might need some popcorn. Wanda heads to the kitchen. Vision calls her back. She turns around. She's suddenly pregnant. Wanda asks if this is really happening. Vision reassures her that it is, and they are quickly interrupted by a sound outside. They head outside. They see a man climbing out of the sewer in a beekeeper's outfit from Sword. He's surrounded by bees. When the man turns to face them, Wanda simply utters, "No." And things begin to rewind, bring things back to the point where Wanda asks if the pregnancy is happening. This time, instead of hearing the sound, Vision reassures her that it's really happening. They kiss, and Wanda notices Vision's face is now in color as she and the environment all become colorized. They kiss again. The camera pulls out, and that same voice from the radio earlier asks, "Who's doing this to you, Wanda?" I kind of like this ending, and this was another like red herring, right? Because I remember being like, "That's Swarm. That's the
Right.
bad guy, Swarm." Totally wasn't Swarm, but
Was not. Was
yeah.
not. Yeah, I remember, and this is the first instance where we see her rewind and then edit a scene, right? And
Yeah.
so to like just blur over that part, I remember spending way too much time on Reddit trying to figure out like, okay, sword, aim, swarm, and just like I'm like Charlie Day, It's Always Sunny with like the red string between like
It's Pepe Sylvia.
Who's Pepe Silvio? Now we know who Pepe Silvio is. Anyway, so we get to episode 3, 70s, Brady Bunch, even though Brady Bunch came in the late 60s. But we jump straight to the intro song. We got Something Cooking, which is a very nice homage for, I think, Partridge Family.
Oh yeah.
Brady Bunch, lyrics about them, about Wanda and Vision, and they prepare for the birth of their children. So we see, and this again, I thought they did a really good job of each of the decades, I thought the 70s was like really, really well done.
Oh yeah, the costuming and everything, and the
Everything.
decor. Yeah.
So great. It's so great. So we see WandaVision inside their home when Dr. Stan Nielsen, who's played by Randy Oglesby, the town's obstetrician, is visiting the couple. Vision's nervously asking questions about the pregnancy, which confuses Dr. Nielsen a bit, because obviously he doesn't know what's going on. Wanda covers up for the fact that she's about 4 months pregnant, despite it's only been like, I don't know, 10 hours since the last episode. But, well,
right.
I'm terrible.
Overnight.
Yeah, overnight. That's usually how it happens. But, like, I mean, it's kind of like a TV show cartoon where they just, time doesn't really happen. It doesn't really matter.
Exactly.
Right. It's all of a sudden like, oh, now it's a year later. What's one episode later? Anyway, so Vision walks Dr. Nielsen out. He asks him to keep Wanda's pregnancy a secret. Dr. Nielsen agrees and leaves to take his Bermuda trip. Vision looks back and greets his neighbor Herb, who is on like the other side of the driveway. There's Agnes. He seems to be kind of like glitching out a little bit.
He's trying like to cutting through the wall. He's like trying to take a hedge clipper through the wall.
Yeah, through the cinder block. Yeah. As Vision points out the mistake, his neighbor thanks him, but he continues to cut into the wall with like a smile. So it's like this weird kind of glitching. Again, this is another. I don't think Herb is trying to break out, but I think he's definitely like.
Yeah, Wanda wasn't thinking about him at that time, right? She
didn't
write his story.
It's like one of the animatronics in like Pirates of the Caribbean isn't working, and it's just like, okay, well that cat's not meowing, whatever. Anyway, so Vision heads back inside to tell Wanda of the interaction, but now it's distracted because she's hell of pregnant at this point in time, and so now she's like clearly like 8-9 months pregnant. They're in the nursery decorating. She uses her powers and brings some paper butterflies to life, which was kind of interesting. They are talking about names for the child. I'm sorry, spoiler. For the child, if it's a boy, Vision proposes naming the child Billy. She suggests Tommy. They kind of playfully argue over it. Then Wanda uses her powers to paint a stork on the wall while Vision does the math to figure out at this rate the baby should be due in just 3 days' time.
I think so. When they're arguing about names, they're like, "Oh, we'll figure it out when it shows," and Hope for a Girl. And I kind of think Hope for a Girl might be a reference to Hope Summers, who's a pretty big comic book like person. Now, granted, that's obviously like she's in the Summers line, so like Cyclops and all those, but so not related to Wanda and Vision. But I feel like that line was put in there for comic book fans a little bit.
Could have been. I wouldn't be surprised. The other nice little nod was the paint they used was called Simser paint, which was used to paint the nursery, and that is a nod to Jerry Simser, who was a storyboard artist on WandaVision.
Nice.
Yeah. So the two continue to prepare for the arrival of their child. Vision is practicing changing a doll at a rapid rate while Wanda times them. Like, it's this funny kind of race to like super quick, like change a diaper. Wanda starts to experience false labor. They practice their breathing exercises. The appliances, she starts to lose control of her powers. This is where you start to see the anomaly start to break down as she goes into delivery. Appliances start to go crazy, lose power, all this stuff. Wanda points out this what happens during false labor. What's going to happen during the real labor? So this and Vision starts to think about the dinner with the hearts and the herb stuff, and he's starting to kind of question something that's going on. And like, you know, at this moment where she's sort of losing her grip a little tiny bit as she gets further pregnant, further closer to delivery. So Wanda's about once again overcome with labor pains, only this time it is the real deal. The couple do some breathing exercises, like, which I can imagine like during COVID times is like, oh man, are we going to die by doing this scene? But anyway, so everything's fine for a moment until the water, it begins to rain inside the house. Her water breaks, and that's when she says her water just broke. So very surreal. At this point in time, we get the commercial break, and this time it's for a bubble bath commercial, which is, as you might remember, old Calgon, take me away, right? And it's a Hydra themed product. The woman in the commercial mentions, it's sort of like nods to Wanda's origin. There's the
goddess within.
Yeah, the goddess within, the reading of her mind, which might be a reference to the Mind Stone. Anyway, we're back to the episode. We see Wanda and Vision hiding under the dining room table because of the indoor rainfall, which is funny. It stops after a moment. Wanda uses her powers to basically like blow dry their house dry. She feels more labor pain, so Vision goes off to find Dr. Nielsen. Wanda tries to push through another contraction when she hears a strange sound coming from the nursery. As she goes to investigate, she's startled by the doorbell. She uses her magic to open up. Geraldine's there. Wanda grabs a large coat to disguise her pregnancy. And then, Geraldine's come over to borrow a bucket because the pipes in her ceiling burst. And so as she goes to grab the bucket, Wanda's feeling more contractions. Each one's, changing the jacket that she's wearing, which is kind of funny. She grabs a bowl of fruit to cover it up. This is like an old kind of like just.
I was going to say, this was absolutely making fun of the old tropes of how they would hide a pregnant actress.
100%. 100%. Geraldine appears unaware of what's going on, or maybe she's just playing cool and trying to like find out more information. At one point in time, like a stork walks by and you're just like, what the? And then at that point in time, Geraldine notices the crib. She discovers that Wanda's pregnant. Geraldine's getting Wanda ready to give birth and instructs Wanda to breathe and push. Out comes little baby boy and hands little baby Tom Billy, named TBD, to the new mother. Vision, Dr. Nielsen come in a moment later. Vision meets the son. With Geraldine and Dr. Nielsen in the other room, Vision transformed into his natural state and holds the baby, calling him Tommy. So I guess that's what the name's going to be. I also love the trope of like every newborn baby is just, they're like 3 months old. Spotless clean. I don't know if you were in the delivery room, but that's not what it's like. No. Anyway, wildly different. So the couple share a smile. Wanda begins to go into labor again, and Vera realizes another baby. This time Billy's coming out. Later, the four adults are in the living room with Vision and Dr. Nielsen holding Tommy Billy. Vision walks Dr. Nielsen out, who mentioned his planned vacation to Bermuda will not be happening anymore. He said, Dr. Nielsen ominously states, small towns are hard to escape. Vision's outside. He finds Agnes and Herb chopping it up about Wanda in the driveway. And he's intrigued and he approaches them what they're discussing and asks Agnes asks if Geraldine is with him. He says yes. Back inside, Wanda reveals Geraldine. She herself is a twin. She appears overcome with emotion as she brings up Pietro before singing to her newborn babies a Sokovian lullaby. And then stuff starts to go down. Geraldine is confused. She reminds Wanda that Pietro was killed by Ultron. And this like startles Wanda. And she was like, she realized this is not a character I created. This is an intruder, just like the beekeeper, just like the drone, right? And, outside, they're cutting back and forth outside. Vision's talking to Herb and Agnes. And, they explained that Geraldine is new to town, has no family, husband, or even a home, even though she's a neighbor. Vision clearly finds that straight. Herb says, quote, she came here because we're all... And then that's where we cut back inside. Wanda asks Geraldine to repeat what she says. Geraldine offers to take a shift off to help with the baby. Wanda persists. She notices the sword necklace. And at that point in time, she just... she can't answer any questions, Geraldine. And so Wanda just basically sends her through the magical barrier that separates the town and the outside world, just casts her out of...
Yeah, just fully yeets her, just...
Totally. And we see it later on. We see it again repeated, like sends her through buildings and across town. It's wild.
Yeah.
So Vision tries to get more information. Agnes is scared and cuts off Herb. He's, again, starting to get an idea that something odd is going on. He goes back inside. He finds Wanda standing over the babies. He asks where Geraldine is, and Wanda explains that she, quote, had to rush home to outside the hex. And then we see Geraldine outside Westview. Monica Rambeau lands in the outside world, and then sword, vehicles, and agents rush toward her as the monkeys' Daydream Believer plays into the credits. Another kind of on the point, on the nose song about daydreaming.
Yeah, so loved this episode. Like, this is clearly where things are starting to crash down, right? Like, we're really getting to the cracks, which is interesting because at the same time as like the cracks are showing, Wanda's also getting her ultimate thing, right? She's getting her family, which is really interesting.
So. Yeah. Is this where we're going to before episode 4?
Yeah, so real quick, before we get any further, before we see how far down the rabbit hole this all goes, we are going to take a episode break here. So listeners, we're going to split this into 2 episodes. So come back for episode 2. I believe it'll release the same day, so you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, you can jump over to the other episode for episodes 4 through 9, as well as our final thoughts. So we will see you after the jump.